Welcome, Divine Goddess, for another episode on Authentically Healed Women's Trauma Healing Podcast. I am Chloe, your host, your favorite feminist bestie, psychotherapist, and energy healer. And today's topic is going to be about motherhood, having children, the choice of having children, and versus also being child free and all that comes with the choice of having children, which today in most countries, not all, unfortunately, we have. And we need to keep fighting to be able to have that choice. I'm thinking of right now the United States that are going through a very complicated political situation. Um, but so I wanted to make an episode today on our choice when it comes to motherhood, childbirth, having children as women, which in my opinion is really important. And I wanted to explore also this topic in regards to, our choices. Do we want kids? Do we, for those of us who choose to not have kids, those of us who cannot have kids. I really wanted to explore this topic today, as I feel there's a lot of also currently a lot of different messages, trends, social media trends, also in a day-to-day life, in public spaces, in professional spaces. There's always this conversation and this debate and different opinions on, women's bodies. Obviously, everyone has something to say. But also amongst women, I feel like sometimes there's also a lot of some tension. Some women, some of us are still, kind of misogynist. Some of us are more free, and it can create also a lot of tension amongst women. Unfortunately, that's the sad reality, I believe, in our societies, that there's also a lot of tension amongst women. Although thankfully, I want to remain hopeful. I want to remain optimistic and believe that we're getting into a place where we are coming together. Obviously, there's always people who are very wounded, abusive in everywhere, right? But hopefully my hope is that women, for the majority of us, can come together again and be empowered together. That's my hope. That's my perspective for the future and what I'm holding on to and I believe deeply. So yeah, without being said, let's start explore this topic without any further ado. First of all, I wanted to talk about also, motherhood and how motherhood is perceived. I feel like still in our society today, we still have kind of this mindset. Some of us are growing out of it, obviously, but I feel like in the collective unconscious, there's still this belief, subconscious belief that, women who don't bear children are not fully women. I think even those of us who are open-minded and who are modern and who are not misogynistic and think for themselves, you know, even as evolved women, I think we can all agree that we throughout our lives we do experience doubts regards to having children, and we do experience the pressure of society, and we do fear sometimes on missing out, even if we know deep down that's not for us. But I think there's still some level of guilt, sometimes some level of fear of missing out, when we're talking about children and having children and building our family, right? Um, at the same time, in my opinion, in our society, we've been conditioned to believe that's our only purpose, obviously, and it's still there. Um, I know there's people who will argue with me on this, but I honestly think we're way far away from a modern society, an evolved society. We're still in very patriarchal, toxic patriarchal society, and that still oppresses women. And there's still societal pressure to be servants and to be mothers and to and this perception of women who have children who are put on a better position on a pedestal in comparison to women without children, and the way women are treated differently when they have children or don't have children after a certain age. And for me, it's a fact. It's facts. Women without children who choose to not have children or unfortunately cannot have children and make the decision to not have them, face a lot of rejection, a lot of judgment, a lot of from society. And not necessarily directly, but sometimes indirectly through the media. It's like everything is an indirect message saying to you that, you're unworthy because you haven't fulfilled your main purpose as a woman according to society, which in my opinion is obviously absolutely bullshit and full of shit. Yeah. So not that needless to say that. No need to say that. We are agree on that. That's bullshit, obviously. Um, but so I feel like in return, of the societal pressure, a lot of women who are child free or decided to not have children and couldn't have children kind of feel like they need to justify themselves, or in response to all this pressure, judgment, disrespect, end up also wanting even less to have children in a sense, and need to kind of also justify themselves. And I have seen on social media those past months a lot of also back and forth between women with children, women who don't have children, and who has the better life. It kind of turned into a competition, which that bothers me honestly, because I feel like each individual, each woman has their own journey, and you're not better if you have children, you're not better if you don't have children, you're not better if you are single or if you are married or if you're not married or if you are not in a committed relationship or you're in committed like, or you're heterosexual and you're attracted to men. No one is better. No one is better. And I feel like that's what I wanted to explore today and kind of dive into to, share with you my perspective on this from also a married woman, a mother myself, and how I feel about this, especially as someone who used to not want to have kids and ended up having the calling. Because for me, in my opinion, to become a mother, you have to have the calling, and not everyone has that calling. And having that calling again doesn't mean that you're better. It is only your soul calling for an experience for your growth. Some of us need motherhood to grow. Some of us don't need motherhood to grow and are here to have other experiences. But motherhood is an experience we choose to have, is a growth journey that we choose to have. It doesn't make us better. It's only something that we are called to do. Does it expand us? Does it grow us in ways that are, very deep? 100%. But I also believe we shouldn't put that on a pedestal on a woman's journey, because again, it is each individual's journey that we choose to have. And that is, again, a calling. The same way someone can be called to create art, someone can be called to support people, someone can be called to live in a certain place on this planet and called by a land. the person who's called to create art, let's say, versus the person who isn't called to create art isn't better than the person who isn't called to create art, right? It's not because you're called to do it and others aren't that they are less than you and that you're better than them. Absolutely not. Maybe the person who is not called to create art will be called to experience something else that you yourself will not be called to do. So again, it's really a calling that is each and one of us's journey. Like it's down to the individual's journey. So, and I feel on that note also that the issue we have in our society when it comes to unconscious, the ones of us who are not conscious, the ones of us who have children because it's what society tells them to do, but they're not in tune with themselves necessarily. They don't know if they really desire a child or not, but they do it because it's what is expected from them, and they're seeking their parents' validation, society's validation. And so those of us who follow those rules end up having children, in my opinion, for the wrong reasons, oftentimes. And that's what creates a lot of pain in children and what has also created the society we're in my opinion. Because a child needs to feel they are desired, they are wanted. But when you have children with the absence of desire for a child, but you do it only because society asks you to do, this from the moment they arrive, they are formed, after several months of pregnancy, when they start connecting with you, this is going to create a lot of wounding in the child because you're bringing them in a selfish way, in the sense that in the world, in a selfish way, in the sense that you're doing it for your own feeling of validation, but you're not bringing a child into this world because you feel called to bring them and you feel called to become a mother and to go on this journey. Those are two different things. And I think that to become a mother, we have absolutely to have the desire to become mothers. We have to reflect on, do I desire this child? This is so important. And it's also not because we are pregnant, we get pregnant, that we cannot choose if we bring this child into the world or not. Because again, a undesired child is worse than a child that doesn't come into the world yet, that you let go of before it enters the world, because that creates so much wounding when a child is not desired. I'm not saying that also this, there are not circumstances sometimes, and for some reason you didn't desire a child, it was an accident, and you don't know how you feel, but you keep them, and then you end up feeling very close to that child. And in that case, sometimes we're not fully connected, but we can end up realizing that we actually desire that child and we love them and that we can grow love for them. That's also something that can happen. But what I'm saying is that if you are reflecting, in my opinion, if we are, if you're reflecting on having a child or not having a child, it's important to connect with yourself and really connect with the desire and understand and figure out if you have the desire, because with the absence of desire comes a great deal of frustration, a great deal of pain, a great deal of resentment if you don't have the desire, because the desire is going to pull you through the journey, because motherhood is a tough journey. It's not an easy journey. It's an expensive journey. And like all expensive journeys, it's uncomfortable. It requires, resilience. It requires surrender. So you have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared. You have to have the support system as well. You have to know what you're getting yourself into. It's not just having a cute baby. It's literally raising a human being. You don't even know how they're going to turn out, even though you play a huge role within them, but they also have their own personality. So there's so much things that is going to be out of your control, and you're going to have to, work through so much of your limitations to embrace it and to be able also to let them go. And so that's why I believe like motherhood should be a calling. It's not about being ready, because we're never really ready. Some of us are more ready than others, but it's fine if you have a child and you were not ready. For me, in my opinion, the most important is the desire, is to actually feel the desire in your core. And that is something I wouldn't be able to describe like in words of how that desire feel, but it's a pull, it's a soul, it's a pull towards that experience. It's a deep knowing. It's just a feeling of this is what it's meant to be, And I think in our society, the reason why there's a lot of pain is because a lot of us just follow blindly what society tells us to do, a lot of us women, and we end up having children for the wrong reasons. And then we resent them, and then we don't know how to love them because all we want is the idea of a family. We try to mold our children into something they're not. And so we are so focused on the outside that we forget what motherhood is really about. And instead of connecting with our children, growing with our children, we try to mold them. And that creates a lot of pain. And that's been happening for generations. And I think our generation, the two latest generations, millennials, and the new generations after, we're doing our best to reverse that, to think. And I think that's why in our generation, a lot of women are questioning or making choices to not have children, because they're realizing that it's not about just having children. It's not just a walk in the park. Like there's so much investment, there's so much of yourself that you need to be willing to put into, and you have to be able to actually love that child. You have to be in a space where you're able to love that child. And having children just for the sake of having children is more destructive than anything. And when you look at the state of this world today, the socio-economic, political state of our world today, it is crucial as women that we make choices that are well thought through. We cannot take this lightly, because the future generations are going to depend on us, and we're going to be the ones who are going to bring the future generations in this world, and who are going to raise human beings the way they're going to be raised. And that is going to define the future of this world, literally. How we're going to raise our boys, our daughters, or our children, whatever gender they identify to, whatever is their they're like, if they identify with a gender or not even, whatever. But we're going to raise the future. So we have to be conscious about it. We cannot just have kids for the sake of having kids, because they're going to be the next human beings that are going to continue destroying the earth. And that is our responsibility. We have the power to bring life into this world. And I'm going to speak now from a place of indigenous wisdom, because our indigenous ancestors, I don't care from where you are, you have indigenous ancestors who were at one point in harmony with nature. And those societies understood, women in those societies understood their power of bringing life into this world, and they knew that was a big responsibility. And that is why before colonialism and patriarchy arrived, women, there were already practices of abortions, natural abortions happening. Women chose what was meant to be. They listened to their intuition. They didn't just bring children constantly. They were being responsible for it. So with a great power, we have a great responsibility, and we have to be responsible for whom we bring into this world, and if we bring another human being into this world, it has to be aligned with our desire. It has to be aligned with a desire. It has to be a calling, because if there's a calling, if there's a desire, the soul you bring into, they are uh, they are the ones who they are gonna come with a lot of gifts and things they're meant to bring to this world. When you have the desire, it is this soul calling for you to bring them into this world because they have something to bring into this world, right? And so we have to make sure that we bring souls who are here for the right reasons as well, that will be able to develop into more conscious human beings. So that's why I believe like the desire is really important. And so when we don't have the desire, I believe women who choose to not have children are being good mothers. They are literally being good mothers. They are literally being wise women, because they are aware they don't have the desire. They are not, absolutely not, in a space in their lives where it is aligned to their journeys, and they don't surrender to societal pressure. They listen to their intuition, and that is part of being an empowered woman and a conscious woman. Womanhood is not about motherhood. Womanhood is about listening to our intuition and our calling, whatever that looks like. Motherhood is one of those experiences that some of us are meant to have and some of us aren't meant to have, and that is okay. Someone who becomes a mother is not above someone who doesn't become a mother. The act of being a good mother is being able to put our selfish needs and desires aside for the sake of the human being we choose or don't choose to bring into the world. It's putting aside societal validation and thinking for ourselves. That's what a good mother is, first and foremost. It's listening to our intuition and making the right choices for us, our children, whether that means we have them or we don't have them. It's the same. We have to be able to put that aside. And so women who choose, in my opinion, to not have children, it's totally valid, especially in the current society, in our current socio-economic, political like era right now. You cannot just have children for the sake of having children. We have made a lot of mistakes so far. We have raised a lot of bad human beings, people who are extremely destructive today. We need to do better. So yeah, true. Like for me, it all comes down to having the desire, knowing that also like it's the same when it comes, in my opinion, to adoption, knowing how the industry of adoption is corrupted. You really have to have a deep calling. You really have to have a spiritual calling from another soul to actually choose to adopt. You cannot just adopt for your selfish wants. And we've seen that recently with all the social media exposure we have now, and people are able to share their experiences. Adoptive kids, that's why a lot of adopted kids suffer a lot in their family, and there's a lot of disruption, there's a lot of difficulties, because adults, parents choose to have children for their selfish needs and desires, and not for the sake of another soul, another human being, and cannot put their selfish needs and desires aside for their kid. And so it creates even more destruction, even more. So that's why, again, like we have to be conscious, and us women, especially, because we are the ones who have the power to bring life. We are but not only we are the spiritual beings who can have also a deep connection with another soul when it comes to adoption. Like we're the mothers, so we have all this power. We know what is best. So it's important that we remain connected to ourselves in a pure way to make the right decisions, and not just do things for our selfish desires or other people's selfish desires, because they want also our partner's selfish desires as well. Understanding like that there's so much that comes into play when you raise a child, and it's not just, oh, I'm just going to be a nice person to them. There's so much more. There's the background, there's their personality, there's their they have their own unique needs and desires. Like there's so much that comes into play. You cannot just not think that through. That's irresponsible, especially since now we've like children's psychology has been studied, studies have been made. We know now all the impacts like a lot of things can have on a child's development, and how it can impact them as adults later, and how it can create also very wounded human beings and very destructive human beings. And that we have to make that we have to do differently, absolutely. um so yeah, that was for that. I'm just going through my notes. Um, yeah, I wanted to illustrate my words by sharing a little bit about my own story with motherhood. Again, like I didn't want to have kids. Obviously, I come from a background of divorced parents and an abusive household. So, um, throughout my life, to start with, I'm heterosexual. So my trust in men was not very good. And I didn't want to have kids because I didn't trust. I knew I was going to end up alone, and I wasn't ready to have kids. I also didn't want to bring another soul by myself on, like, and be a single mom. That I didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to have to be bound to a man as well, because although it can not work out, but if you're dealing with an abusive partner, they have rights. So, and you're bound to them until the kid die, like you're bound forever to them in that case. So that's why I just didn't want to have kids, because that really scared me. I was so afraid of being stuck. Um, and but at one point on my journey, I started having the desire for a child. It started coming, but I was not in any stable relationship. So I thought, I'm just gonna, put that aside. I will see in the future. Like, I think if I hadn't met my husband, I think I would have probably um thought about like having a child on my own, because I had the desire, had the calling, and it felt right. Or I would have explored that option. But thankfully I met my husband, and I bet on him, because you never really know, but I saw that he was a very equal partner, and that I was not dealing with someone that was expecting me to be their servant or anything. And I thought, well, I had this feeling in my gut that that was going to work out, and that he was the one for me. And I decided to trust that gut instinct. So that ended up being a good choice. That was a very good choice. And, now we had our daughter, and everything is great. And I could have wished for better, honestly. Um, but I I had the calling for that child. I had a very deep calling, and so I didn't really know what that really meant. But if I hadn't had that calling, because I got pregnant, it was not planned. If I hadn't had that calling, I would have not continued with the pregnancy. But it was because I desired that child, that I decided to continue with the pregnancy. And obviously this was the best decision I made, and motherhood has brought to me so much richness, so much growth. Like, I cannot even don't have even enough words to describe it, but like it really grew me in ways I would have never been able to grow without it. But that was my calling, that was my journey. I needed motherhood. I needed motherhood for my growth. There are women who don't need motherhood for their growth, or are not ready, or don't have the desire, whatever is your case, you know? And for me, it was something that was really important on my journey, and I have zero regrets. Although obviously it had its sets of challenges, but it was just aligned. It was just meant to be. But if I didn't have that desire, I would have never kept a baby. Like I would have never pursued with the pregnancy. Because again, it's so much worth to have a child that feel undesired than interrupted a pregnancy when you're not yet connected to your child. Like, and for some, obviously, some extreme people, extreme thinking people, it's killing a soul. I don't fully agree with that, because if you approach life and death in the sense that it's only two coexisting, um there's just two coexisting um dimensions, that you have like the energy dimension and that you have the physical dimension. It's just going from one to another. It's just a transition. um Interrupting, like, and when we have children, in my opinion, and we're pregnant, we're a portal for them to come through. If we interrupt a pregnancy early on, I feel sometimes it's necessary. Like, it's hard, it's it's difficult, but sometimes it's better to interrupt the pregnancy than bringing a child in a space that is unsafe, emotionally unsafe. They don't feel desired. Like, I think it's also our relationship sometimes to death that is the issue in our society. We, like, especially with women in pregnancy, it's a big issue, and currently in the United States, but in a lot of places in the world, abortions are still illegal. And I think it's because it's also taking away women's power of knowing what is best to do and listening to their intuition. I believe deeply that's all it is. Men being afraid of women's power and wanting to minimize their power and being jealous of their power to bring life and wanting to control their bodies, when we literally know exactly what we need to do and we know what is best, if a pregnancy needs to continue or not. And that is our own choice. And we are the best person to know, the person who gives life. We are the best person to know what is best to do. So yeah. And that's why I think when we choose to not have children, it's a very well thought decision. And it's not like, a life without children is not a sad life at all. It really depends on one person to another again. Some people will be happier and more fulfilled with children, and some of us will be happier without children, will be happier without following societal rules and surrendering to the pressure and letting the pressure win. That is the worst way to have children, is to look for societal validation and our family's validation and people around us validation from people. It's literally the worst way to have children. And there are so many adults who, in previous generations, so many of our, people from our family or our own parents sometimes had children for the wrong reasons and couldn't raise them properly. And instead of that, destroy them or hurt them and made them grow into adults who struggled mentally, who were destructive with themselves, but also with others, with like that just explains where we are at now. Like some of us shouldn't have children, are not meant to have children, and that is okay. Women are not just here for the sole purpose of having children. We are more than that. We also, as individual women, we are more than motherhood. We are more than our ability to give life. We are more than our natural connection with emotions and with the spiritual world and our natural empathy. We are more than that. And I think part also of choosing to making that choice to have or not have children, it's also reminding ourselves that we are more than that and that shouldn't define us. It's not our sole purpose. We have so much more to bring into this world. The same way I believe motherhood shouldn't define one woman. We are more than motherhoods. We came here. It's part of the experience we're meant to have, sure, for our growth, but all have a purpose. We all came with a medicine, with something that we're meant to create into this world. We're not here to sit around and wait to find someone to have kids. We're here because we have purpose. We have something to bring into this world. We all have something to bring into this world. For those of us who are connected to source and are connected to love, we have a purpose. And our sole purpose is not just to have children. And I think when women choose to not have children, it definitely, challenges the status quo. It challenges all the societal norms. But I believe women not choosing children are also good mothers, are also using their power to give life. They're also being in their power. They are also using this power to give life, and because they're choosing to not bring life into this world. But that's also using their power in a good way. And there's no better or worse way, to live your life. Someone with children is not better than someone who doesn't have children. Someone who doesn't have children isn't better with you know, in comparison to someone who has children. Everyone has their own journey. No one is better. And that's when I believe, like, as women, it's important that we understand this, that it's not a competition. We have to step out of that. We don't need to prove ourselves. We don't need to prove ourselves. Each path has its sets of difficulties and challenges. Each path has its own sets of difficulties. There's not one path that is easier or less of a challenge. When you have kids as a woman, you have all the challenges of society, of how you want to raise your kids, of people's judgment. There's so much. And when you don't have a child as a woman, same, you have all society's judgment, people commenting, people making you doubt, people trying to tear you down. Like, we can never win, truly. So why be in competition with each other? We just can't. In all situations, we're gonna be bullied on some level, judged on some level, whatever. Like, it's always gonna be something like that. So let's just focus on our journeys. Your whatever is yours, it's your choice and it's a beautiful one. There's not one journey that's better than the other. No one is better. We all have our different journeys. That's it. That's it completely. Like, on my side, for instance, I have one daughter. I had one daughter. People have told me, like, why don't you give her another sibling? And mothers, we know we experience all that. I literally don't want to have another kid until maybe years later, if really I have the desire or the calling. But I like I do not have the desire right now. I do not have the desire. I don't want to get pregnant. I don't want to, like, I do not have the desire. I'm good with one child. And if I stay with one child, I am good. I want to focus on that child. I want to focus on being a better parent first to that child before having other children. That's my choice. Again, you can get pregnant by accident, decide to keep it. You can realize that actually you're more than ready for two kids. That's fine too. But right now, my choice is I want to stick with one kid. I'm already, you know, I am neurodivergent. I already feel overwhelmed with motherhood very easily, overstimulated very easily. I can handle one child right now. I cannot handle two children. And I want to focus on first being a good parent to my unique child to start with. And at the same time, obviously, desires work in a different way. Sometimes a sibling is going to bring balance, it's going to be a beautiful balance. So, again, I'm saying I'm not closing that door. But right now, I'm not going to have a child just for the sake of having a child, just for the sake of having a sibling. And I've already had that conversation with my daughter. Like, she asked me about a sibling, and I explained to her what it takes for me to have a child because it's going to take 9 months. I'm already tired, as you can see. I'm going to be even more tired. So imagine I'm already struggling. Like, I'm trying to play with you, spending time with you. I'm giving my all, but I also have my own struggles and my own limitations. So I'm going to be tired. I'm often tired, as you can see, at doing my best, but I can be tired. So imagine me having, being pregnant with a child, I'm going to be more tired. So I'm going to struggle more to play with you or spend time with you. I'm going to do it, obviously, but it's going to be more difficult. And then also, you're going to have to share me with another sibling, and it's going to be different. So there's a lot that comes into play. And then I have to birth that child as well. And it's a challenging moment. It's a life-changing moment for everyone. It's a stressful moment for everyone. Like, there's so much that comes into play. So, and then there's everything around, also financially as well, you know. Although when you have a second child, obviously you can use everything that you used for your first child, but there's a lot that comes into play. So, um, for me, the choice of having children or not having children is about intuition. Yes, it's about surrender. Sometimes you don't know that that's going to bring you, happiness, but at the same time, it's important that we can make that choice and be grounded in that choice and be reasonable in our choices as well and being responsible. That's really important. So, yeah, that was my take on choosing to have children or not having children. What is your take? Feel free to comment in the comment section. Let me know your opinion. I'd love to know. Do you have something to add to this topic? I love debates and more importantly, conversations like this. So I would love to know your opinion on that. Is there a part that you resonate with? Would you like to add something that, to the conversation? You're more than welcome to add that in comments in the comment section, and I'd love to read you. If you are also, again, interested in exploring deeper within yourself, your desires, your needs, understanding, making sense of your desires and needs as well. If you feel like you're not really connected, you struggle with numbness and disconnection, I created a free webinar on how to heal trauma and how to explore internalized emotions that you will find in my link in bio. I highly recommend you to check it out if you are searching for clarity within your own emotions and you struggle with, disconnect and things like that. Understanding how trauma works and how you can overcome it is crucial to be able to find clarity within yourself. So I created this free webinar so you can access it and create your own opinion, decide if you want to go further down that road. But understanding already what trauma is, I believe, is a first step to gaining clarity within ourselves as well. So, yeah, feel free to check that out in my link in bio. And in the meantime, goddess, I'm sending you much love. Keep rising and keep shining. Talk to you soon.